Did I stab myself? Oh shit.
I rarely, if ever, get hyped for a special edition or a deluxe edition of a game. But later this year, Budget Cuts is getting the Ultimate Edition on Steam, and if it had a pre-order button, I'd be clicking that in a heartbeat. Budget Cuts, both the first and the second, are fantastic games. But it's a shame that the franchise really just isn't talked about anymore, especially since Budget Cuts has some of the best game design I've ever seen. Now make no mistake, Budget Cuts isn't exactly an unknown game. Yeah, you got that right. When Budget Cuts 1 released in 2017, it was the cream of the crop for immersive, beautiful, and inventive VR games. But since then, the game has kinda disappeared. I mean, I only found out that Budget Cuts even had a sequel until about 6 months ago when I bought it in a bundle, at which point I promptly forgot about it again until about a week and a half ago. And man, am I disappointed I did forget about it. I forgot how much fun Budget Cuts is to play, and the sequel is no different. These games are a masterclass in stealth,
Gotcha.
combat,
Take this.
and game design.
Oh, that's clever.
And yeah, I stand by what I said earlier. These games have some of the best game design I have ever seen in all my years of playing games. And I don't just mean that they have the best game design of VR games, I mean that they have some of the best game design of all games ever. The mechanics in this game always seem to bring people to think of the game Portal, and to a certain extent, I can see why. You know, because of the portals. But I think it's more than just that. One of the reasons why Portal and Portal 2 were such good games is because they did two things really well. They had well-refined, unique gameplay mechanics, and they also had really good game design. And just like Portal, Budget Cuts does both of these so well. For one, the mechanics of this game feel so refreshing in the modern era of VR, especially regarding this game's locomotion. Pretty much every other big VR game has locomotion as more of an afterthought, but this game gives a locomotion system that's not only good for motion sickness, but it also is a main game mechanic. For instance, the portals allow you to look around when you're going to teleport, aiding in stealth and exploration. And the portals are also physical objects in the game, meaning that they bounce when launched and enemies can see through them, again exemplifying how immersive and well thought out this game is. And the combat and stealth are just as thought out and unique as well. The knives and later the bow add to the stealth atmosphere of the game and also mean that you really have to plan things out before going in all genocide-y.
Do I pick the stealth or genocide route? Genocide.
Because the knives and bows are so shit to use, and with ammo being so scarce, you can't just walk into an area expecting to walk out alive. You actually have to plan out who you're going to attack first, who might get you spotted, and even whether or not it's worth taking out an enemy and using the rest of your precious ammo. And speaking of planning, this game's level design is right up there with its mechanics in terms of polish and ingenuity. Take the office setting for instance. It may seem bleak and barren to convince you that your job is meaningless, but yet you slave away each day just to spend the little time you have outside of work doing what you love, even though that time is spent with the knowledge that you just have to do the same thing all over again tomorrow and therefore your life is meaningless and you have no purpose.
I wonder what level of hell this is.
But in actuality, that bleakness is a clever game mechanic as it allows for the color of important objects, like knives and door handles, to stand out, telling the player where to go and what's actually part of the game. A quick scan of a room can easily tell you where the enemies are, what doors are openable, what weapons are accessible, and what direction to your next objective is. There's no fuss, no confusion. And when there is confusion, when the game purposely wants you to not understand the layout of a location, not only does the game make it clear that that area is designed to be confusing, but there's some aid that's designed as a clever escape the room puzzle. I really enjoyed finding slips of paper telling you the area of a desk you're supposed to search, or finding a map that I had to ingest to find the solution to a puzzle. I always felt like it was so rewarding discovering the solution to these puzzles, or even just knowing what the red herrings were.
Aha. Yes.
This game's level and game design are so well done that I honestly can't find much wrong with it. It's just a great stealth game. But if these games are so good, why are they not talked about today? Well, for one, the whole Budget Cuts franchise is now somewhat old. It was one of the first big VR titles that hit the market, and so by now, most people want to move on to newer and greater things. And plus, since it was such an early entry for VR, there were a lot of things that were clearly not figured out yet. For example, this game has a lot of useless crap. Many objects strewn about just don't do anything, and it can be infuriating when you actually are trying to find something useful. You might stumble into a janitor's closet that has a ton of boxes and cans, only to find 1 or 2 objects that are actually useful to you. And speaking of which, this game also does not reward foraging at all. Many cabinets and drawers are completely empty despite their ability to be opened. I wish this game incentivized rummaging through drawers and desks, or at least found some way to let the player know that they were empty. And another major complaint that me and a lot of people have with these games is that they're pretty short. While this does make the games very replayable and quite fun for a quick run through, I often found myself wanting more out of the game, especially given the steep $30 price tag for only 4 to 5 hours of actual playtime. Oh, and there's also the fact that the second game released 2 days after Boneworks, so yeah, I can see why a lot of people went to play that instead. Truthfully though, I still think that the $30 price tag is worth it for these games, especially since the new Ultimate Edition is $30 for both games. That's a steal. I'd happily pay $30 for 10 hours worth of some of the best VR experience I've had to date. And while some of the game is a bit lackluster, I still think the brilliant design of these 2 games easily makes up for the issues in short story. I'm happily going to replay them all over again when the Ultimate Edition comes out later this year. In fact, I probably should start practicing my throwing skills now, so it's probably about time I should take my leave. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe or don't, and I'm gonna try not to get spotted by some evil robots.
Hi. Oh,